I'd like to thank our friends over at SimplySafe.com for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk more about SimplySafe later in the video, but if you would swing by SimplySafe.com/military arms, you can check out the security systems. More on SimplySafe here in a moment. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a rifle we've had a lot of questions and comments about over the years because this gun has shown up in previous videos, but we've never done a dedicated video to it. And the rifle we're going to talk about today is the Robinson Armament M96. This is a clone, if you will, of the Stoner 63 or 63A weapon system, and we'll talk more about that in this video. I've brought out two different versions of the gun that were made available. There were several different configurations that were made available over the years while it was in production, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll field strip it. We'll show you where there's some significant differences internally to the Stoner 63 versus the M96, and all sorts of good stuff. But before we get started with today's video, guys, please take a moment just to click that like, share, and subscribe button and click that notification bell. It truly helps us out here at the channel. Also, please comment down below. We love reading those comments and responding to them when we can. And with all that being said, let's get started with our video and talk about the Robinson Armament M96 Expeditionary rifle. This video is not about the Stoner 63, this is about the M96, but I'm going to have to cross over back and forth just to reference the 63 periodically because this is a clone of the rifle. So let's start off talking about the M96, and we'll start off on the rear. So on the buttstock, this is a polymer buttstock. This is the one and only piece that is compatible with an actual real Stoner 63 rifle. We have a sling mount here for a strap sling. Moving forward, we have a fairly conventional polymer pistol grip that's hollow on the inside. You do not have a selector lever that's ambi on the gun. The selector lever is on the left-hand side, and you just have fire and safe. Over here, though, it is marked fire and safe, so you can get a visual cue whether or not the weapon's on fire or safe by looking at the right-hand side of the gun. Up here, we have an A2 style rear sight. This is part of this 1913 system that I have on the gun. The original rear sights would take up these two pinholes and it would be at a slight angle. It would have an adjustable rear sight in there as well, but this is part of the 1913 rail system that I have on here, and this is a primary arms optic that's on top of the gun. Moving forward, we have the magazine release on the gun. The gun does use standard AR-15 M16 Stenag mags, and the gun will lock open on the last shot fired. What's absent from the design is a means to release the bolt outside of pulling the non-reciprocating charging handle to the rear and releasing it when you insert a fresh magazine. So you take the expired or expended magazine out, expired magazine, put a fresh magazine in, and then pull the charging handle to the rear, release it, and that would strip around, chamber it, and the weapon be ready to fire. Moving forward, we have points here that we have screws in holding the 1913 rail system on, but again, these points were intentioned for push pins and various different components to reconfigure the rifle into whatever configuration you would want it to be in. Polymer handguard underneath it does not have a heat shield in there, by the way. Underneath it, this handguard protects the button that you can push in that holds the barrel assembly in the gun. Moving forward out here, we have sling points on both sides of the receiver. The receiver is stamped stainless steel. Out here on the front, we have this is your gas block with your integral front sight. The front sight is like an FAL rear sight. You have two opposing screws, loosen one, tighten the other. You can drift it left and right for a gross zero. And then we have a standard AR-15 M16 style front sight we can adjust for elevation. Now, the gun does not have a bayonet lug, and the original guns did not have any type of muzzle device on them. It had a machined device on there that was a 2-port brake. This one's been threaded for a muzzle device, but the guns were introduced into the market during the Clinton ban era, so this would have been a featureless gun. It couldn't have a bayonet lug on it and couldn't have a threaded barrel or a muzzle device on it during the ban. So that's pretty much the standard features of the gun. It's a very lightweight, interesting rifle. I've had really good luck with them over the years. I have several of these guns. I've never had a functional problem with any of them. They were available with different stock sets. There are sand-colored stock sets and stuff out there towards the end of their production run. But this is pretty representative of what a standard M96 might look like, minus the rail that I've put on top with the optic. As gun owners, we take reasonable precautions to protect our investments. one thing that we typically buy are gun safes. Every gun owner out there pretty much has a gun safe, or I would hope so. But another reasonable precaution to take would be to have a home security system. That way you can know whether or not somebody's breaking into your house before they even get to your gun safe. Now, I was a bit daunted by trying to pick a home security system. There's so many choices out there. And that's why I discovered SimpliSafe. SimpliSafe is something that you can order online or over the phone. It's delivered directly to your house. You set it up yourself within less than an hour. It's very easy to do using your Droid phone or iOS device and the keypad that comes with the alarm system. And you can quickly set up all sorts of different types of sensors for your house. Now, you can buy packages that are prepackaged, or you can pick and choose what sensors you need for your particular install. This is the base unit that comes with the system. So this is kind of the heart and soul of the system. And here are some of the sensors that I personally use. Now, I have a doorbell sensor, which has a camera on it and a motion sensor, but we have entry sensors that you can put on doors and windows. Have a water sensor. If you have a sump pump downstairs, you have a basement that floods, the sensor will give you an alarm if it detects water near your sump pump. You have motion sensors that you can put in different rooms. Again, they just simply detect motion. Have a glass break sensor. If you have a room that has a lot of windows in it, put one of these in that room. Somebody breaks any one of those glass windows, it sets off the alarm. Carbon monoxide and smoke sensors. We have cameras that you can place in different rooms. If you have children, you can, they're in crib, you can put one in there. You can put them in the living room, downstairs, wherever. And from your phone, you can log in and tap into any one of these cameras and just check in on your house while you're gone. You also have key fobs, and the key fob has the ability to arm the alarm or disarm the alarm, or you can use your mobile phone. When you come into the house, you can use the keypad to arm and disarm the alarm, and you can also use the keypad to set up all these different devices. So if you'd like to learn more about this really neat wireless system that you can set up yourself that has 24-hour monitoring, please go by simplisafe.com/military arms and check out the packages that are available and see if the SimpliSafe home security system makes sense for you. So we have the two different versions that I have out here this afternoon. We have the regular rifle configuration on the bottom and then the Bren configuration on the top. Why is it called a Bren configuration? Because it's a top feed magazine conversion. And it is very similar to the old Bren machine gun that was popular during World War II. To convert this rifle into this, you would need to buy a conversion kit. In this case, you have the exact same magazine well. All we've done is turned the receiver upside down. You'll notice that the writing on the receiver is now inverted. We've taken the exact same magazine, inverted the receiver, and so it has the same magazine well. Then we've pinned in place this rear block, which gives us our rear sight. And then forward, you'll notice we have a heavy fluted barrel. It's intended for sustained fire. Again, the barrel drops in just like it would on the regular rifle. You'll notice, though, that the barrel release is on top of the gun now because we've inverted the gun. But that's how you would take the barrel out of it. Out on the end, we have an offset front sight, which would be part of the barrel conversion. Here you can see the original barrel device, if you will, featureless because of the 94 band era. And then out on the end, we have the adjustable gas regulator. This regulator is the exact same adjustable gas regulator that's on the carbine or rifle version. So still a little bit of shooting with the Bren. This is probably my favorite configuration just because it's so out of the ordinary. Now the sights are offset, just like the original Bren. So the magazine goes right in the middle of the gun. It's going to eject out the left-hand side now because we've inverted everything. But we have the sights now that's set off to the left of the magazine so you can align your sights. So it's not going to be very left-handed friendly. But other than that, the fire controls are the same. So the charging handle, because we've inverted the receiver, is on the other side. So to charge the weapon, I'm going to pull the charging handle to the rear, and you'll see the bolt go home, strip around. Now it's going to throw the spent cases off to my left here. Do a little shooting at 100 yards. Gun locks open, magazine release, because the gun is inverted, is on the left-hand side. Pull the magazine out. You'll notice we were using a PMag, so it does work with PMags, and the bolt's locked open. That's pretty cool. Rear sight folds, for storage. Very, very neat. I would love to see Robinson Armament continue the development of the gun. Rumor is they might do a limited production run. It's been floated, the idea. So let's do a little bit of shooting with the carbine. Now again, I have this pick rail on top that's an added accessory. I'm going to use just a standard 20 round magazine. You'll notice that we have the adjustable gas regulator out there on the end. And just like its Bren brother, oh, I just induced a double feed. I hate it when I do that. Pulled the charging handle to the rear, released it, grabbed it, pulled it to the rear again. Being a dummy. All right, so let's do a little shooting at 100 with the standard rifle version. So, locks open, last shot fired. The non-reciprocating charging handle will click and lock in the forward position just under spring detent. Let's take the gun apart and see what makes it tick on the inside. It's very different than the original Stoner 63 design, and we'll talk about some of those differences. Just know that there's nothing on this rifle that's compatible with the original Stoner 63, 63A. The only part that is would be this physical buttstock. Everything else in this gun is unique to the M96 and is not compatible with the Stoner. So to take the gun apart now, I'm going to take a rifle version apart. We do have the Bren gun out here this afternoon, and depending on what version of the gun you have, the disassembly will be slightly different. It's a very modular rifle. That was the original intent of this gun, was to make a single firearm that could serve multi-roles, and so that's why it has so many different little pieces that are held in place by various pins. So let's take this gun apart and take a look at it on the inside. First, I'm going to drop the magazine out. It does use standard AR-15 magazines. Charging handle is here on the left. The original 63s, the charging handle would be on top. So I'm going to pull that to the rear, take a look inside, and the gun is empty. The weapon is unsafe, and as I've already mentioned, there's a series of pins that hold this entire system together. So let's start off by taking apart the lower assembly. Now, like the original version, there's only one captive pin on the entire gun, and it's this pin right here that holds the trigger mechanism in place. Now there's a second pin up here that holds the trigger mechanism and stock in place. I'm going to pop that pin out. It is not captive. But they have little detents on them. Okay, that pin comes out. Make sure this pin's all the way out, and then just kind of wiggle that lower loose, making sure that that pin's not getting in the way. And there's your lower assembly with your fire control group. This is completely different than the Stoner. The trigger controls and everything are completely different. Set that aside. Now we have the magazine well, but let's unpin that. It uses the same pin that holds the barrel in place, at least partially. So I'm going to take that all the way out. The barrel release mechanism just kind of sprung up on me there a little bit, but now I can take off the magazine well. All right. Now this is different as well. I'm going to take the bolt out of the gun, the bolt and carrier. I'm going to push on this little pin here, and this is more like a SIG PE90 or 550 than original Stoner. Original Stoner would have had a spring that went into the rear, and in a more conventional fashion, this is like a 550 in that you have a long stroke gas piston and a recoil spring around the piston. To release it from its charging handle, you push here, push down, and that releases the bolt and carrier, and that will come right out the back. This is considerably different, again, than the original design. It has a spring in there where the original didn't. The top's different, doesn't have the reversible tab for the belt-fed conversion, things like that. So this is an entirely separate unit. If you want to take it apart, you have a little pin you push out here, and then it has a cam pin, a bolt that's very reminiscent of the M16 that Stoner would design, but also the lugs are quite a bit beefier than the original M16 design. Not going to take that one apart. Take the handguard off, push the pin out, again non-captive, and the handguard comes off. We have the bolt and carrier out of the gun, so the bolt is not locked into the receiver extension. I can push down on this, which will release the barrel, like that. It's a very simple mechanism that we've also seen used on the Fight Light belt fed. You just have a simple pin that protrudes and locks the barrel into the receiver. You push the button, it withdraws that pin, and the whole barrel and gas block assembly will come out. Inside, just like with the SIG 550, you're going to have a bit of the gas piston protruding through. I'm going to grab the end of the piston. I'm going to push it in and rotate it until it hits its takedown recess. And then the gas piston with the recoil spring around it comes out the front. This is quite a bit different than the original design, but very much like the SIG 550. And now you can invert this gun and move the magazine around and put the different bits and components on it to turn this into a Bren gun. Or if it had a belt-fed conversion, you would invert the gun like this as well, put the belt-fed conversion on the top, take the pistol grip and fire control assembly, move it around to the top of the gun because the gun's inverted. And that really makes for an extremely interesting design. And that's what makes this gun so incredibly modular, is the fact that you can just unpin and pin on different components and it'll give you a completely different weapon. Let's talk about the Bren configuration, because I think it's the most interesting version of the gun that I own. Now, to convert it from the rifle configuration into this configuration, you in essence invert the receiver. The magazine well stays in the same spot, but the fire control and stock go from here and are moved over to what was formerly the top of the gun, which is now the bottom. You'll notice that the trigger mechanism is pinned in place, where on the other gun, this is where the sight and pick rail would be. Where the fire control unit used to be, up here is a unit that is your rear sight for the gun, which is pinned into the same holes where the trigger mechanism would be. So now you can see through the receiver. And you can see the bolt operate, right? So this is inverted, stock inverted, pistol grip inverted. The handguard is also inverted. So in the rifle configuration, it would be up here. It won't fit around this protective fence, but it would be up here, but it's been switched over and pinned to what was once the top of the gun. And then, of course, your gas piston and everything is underneath the barrel now because the receiver's been inverted. I don't know if I pointed this out, but the markings on the receiver are upside down, the Robinson Armament markings. So it's really interesting how this gun, in essence, is created by unpinning your components, flipping this component over, adding this rear sight block, and adding the Bren barrel, but it's using the exact same mag well. So the conversion kit would be this, the barrel, and that's pretty much it. And you just reuse what you already have. The belt fed conversion would be something similar if one were available. And I hope someday one is available. But yeah, this is one of the more interesting ones. You don't see this configuration a whole lot. I don't think it was really all that popular because people would think it's awkward. It's different to shoot, but its uniqueness and the awkwardness of it is attractive to me and makes it fun to shoot. Charging handle, again, on the right-hand side because the gun's upside down. So smooth shooting. Very, very muted recoil impulse. And what's interesting is when you're shooting the gun like this, the ejection port is in such a position that it's throwing spent cases out and hitting you in the arm. So you will want to be aware of that. It's much like a PKM. PKM is actually capable of drawing blood. So you just be aware that you do have hot brass coming out from that ejection port that's now on the other side next to your support arm being right-handed. Very cool system. And man, I just think that looks cool, doesn't it? You guys have to comment down below. Let me know what you think of the Bren gun. Silly conversion or something you would potentially own yourself. Most of you probably know Robinson Armament for their XCR series of rifles. I feature them here on the channel. I post about them on Instagram, and I really like the XCR rifle. The XCR was developed for the SCAR program, and the M96 came before the XCR. But they did coexist for a short time, where the M96 was in production as well as the XCR, but Robinson Armament made the decision to drop the M96 and pursue the XCR as their primary, revenue generator. So this gun fell to the wayside in the late 2000s, I want to say 2010, something like that. I think Wikipedia actually said these things were in production until 2011, which would mean that it would be post Clinton ban era, and I don't recall seeing any of them with muzzle devices or bayonet lugs, that would be done after 2004 when that law sunset. So I'm not sure when they went out of production. All I know is they're not in production right now. There's rumors they might do a limited production run, which hopefully people would be interested in it. I think the reason Robinson Armament probably dropped the guns from the lineup and focused on the XCR was because, one, they were chasing the SCAR contract, and two, they had to make a decision, either go with the new rifle that would be appeal to a potentially broader audience, or continue on with the retro rifle, which probably wasn't doing all that well in sales. People like me would buy something like this because it's the closest I'll ever get to a Stoner 63A. But when comparing this to an AR-15 or something else like that that's more mainstream, this gun probably wouldn't be all that appealing to folks. So they would rather buy an AK or an AR because it's something that they know and understand. But that being said, the gun is extremely well built. Parts are no longer being produced, so if you break a part, you're going to have to shop around, try to find a replacement, but they're really robust rifles. I've had these guns for many years, and they've never broken apart, but I knock on wood when I say that because I'll probably break apart here very soon on one, which would be totally unfortunate. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed taking a look at the M96. Again, it's appeared here on the channel in the past. I had a number of questions about it. People say talk more about it. In particular, the Bren configuration. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link down below. Click that link. You'll get direct access to me. I answer all private communications. You'll get early access to videos like this one and private blog posts and things like that as well. So again, please click the link to Patreon in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, there's a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Click that join button and consider supporting us here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we will talk to you guys soon. As we were shooting today, I was wondering why my groups were opening up with my M96 rifle. And so I went to check the scope, and sure enough, it was loose on there. I had not used a wrench to tighten down the screws. This is the type of stuff that we do behind the scenes. I can go back and reshoot the accuracy scenes, but I'm not going to waste the ammo. I just have to re-zero the gun. Next time it comes out in a decade, it'll hopefully be zeroed.